Welcome to the Spiritual Phoenix Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Cessna, and I bring you, the Phoenix Family, a weekly podcast about alchemy, spirituality, magic, mysticism, and more. The Spiritual Phoenix Podcast is fan-funded, and you can contribute with the link in the show notes. Other ways to show your support include subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us excellent reviews wherever possible, engaging with our content on social media, shooting me an email, and sending an audio message through the Anchor app. This is a community podcast. I'm just the humble host. Let's start the show. All right, welcome everybody. We are joined today with Stefanie Caponi. Stefanie, how's it going?
I'm very well. How are you, Ross?
Dude, I am incredibly exhausted because I've been so busy with work and all this kind of stuff. And then I got a puppy on Sunday, and like bringing a puppy into my household and integrating my puppy with my current dog has been stressful and exhausting.
What types of dogs are they?
So my previous dog, like the dominant one is Rookie, and she is a Cairn Terrier and a Schnauzer mix. She's a very interesting little dog. After the interview, if I remember, I'll send you a picture.
Awesome.
And then the new puppy is a pug, and her name is Renji, and she's phenomenal.
So cute. Congratulations.
Thank you. This is something that like makes me never want to have children because like puppies are very easy to care for, and I'm so exhausted, and I'm kind of selfish with my time. So, but here I am, and I'm trying to like, this is something fun that kind of breaks all the monotony of kind of all of that stuff. One of the first questions I like to ask people out of the gate is, what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful today for so many things. I think the main thing is it's snowing today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm in New York, and it's been a really mild winter, and this is only the third time it snowed the entire season. So waking up, I felt like a child, and I love being in touch with my inner child, and seeing snow is like what gets me to a really joyful place. And it was just like running out with my coffee and seeing all the snow and going outside to play in it, and I felt like a puppy today.
Very, very cool. I'm actually relatively close to you in the scheme of the United States. I live in Ohio, and it's like, I was curious, you didn't get hit by that snowstorm maybe 2 weeks ago? Wow, you missed out. That was like, I think we got like 1.5 feet or something of snow, somewhere around that.
Yeah, I feel like it hit everybody except us in the city.
Aw.
Yeah, it snowed.
I had a little teardrop come down.
So it snowed once. I think like 2.5, 3 weeks ago. It snowed for like a hot second one afternoon, and then it snowed one day in November, and that's in it.
Oh, wow. That is really mild. It's interesting to see how much the weather patterns have really changed due to everything. Because I'm sure, did you grow up in New York?
I'm from everywhere and nowhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my family moved a lot. So I never lived anywhere for more than like 3 years. As a child, I'm from Michigan. But I lived in Texas and Georgia and Kansas and Florida and places it didn't snow. So.
Oh, you're not a good person for me to ask this question then. I was going to ask if you've noticed like a big change in weather from when you were a kid till now, but you would have noticed it just from moving so much, I feel like.
Been in every climate, so.
Yeah, travel's something that's really been a big part of my life as well. This is kind of a off the cuff question. Have you noticed that travel's kind of like a psychedelic experience in the sense that like the more you kind of investigate these new areas that you've been through, you learn these different ways to perceive reality? Like every area that I've been to kind of had its own ambiance and presence where I viewed the world differently living there. Did you experience anything like that?
Is this like as an adult or as a child you had these experiences?
I
think depending on where you are in your development, colors that a little differently.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I traveled around a lot as a kid, but also as an adult. So But yeah, maybe as a kid, it's more kind of a fluid experience because the world's still so new. So you're not as entrenched in your attitude or opinion of things. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
I guess so. I don't know. The way, like, it definitely had a huge effect on like who I became as a person. Because I have like something in me that is always like seeking stability, because your home environment is supposed to be stable as a child, but I never knew where I was going to be. No stability in the people that I was looking for to support me in that way. So as an adult, I have this like inner struggle of needing freedom and needing to like move around, but I'm like, oh my God, I just want to find my home. It's like, so I don't know if I necessarily can have a psychedelic experience. I feel like more like, I don't know, like a foster puppy waiting for its forever home kind of sometimes.
Oh.
Sorry, you got me on the dog train today. But I can see what you mean. I think like I feel that way when I'm traveling for fun, but I haven't been able to have too many like leisureful experiences with travel.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess for me, like in my childhood, I was more so going to places with my grandparents for like gem and mineral shows. So it wasn't like this constant, permanent, transitory experience, which I can see would be actually very destabilizing, kind of like you had touched upon. But then later on in life, it was more so for the experience, but it was like long-term traveling. So then it was more kind of boundary dissolution and all the kind of constituent elements of a psychedelic experience. So it's interesting to see it from both spectrums because I had never considered kind of this destabilizing element of it. Very, very cool. Not cool that it was destabilizing for you, but cool to kind of learn this alternative perspective. One thing I want to say before I ask you this next question is I've also been one of those people that kind of likes to seek this new horizon and kind of always encounter these new experiences. And within the past 2 months, maybe, I've really kind of settled into the fact that I'm probably just going to stay in Ohio for a while and set up roots, which is like a very scary concept for me. Like, unlike how you kind of seek that stability scares the shit out of me. But it's also kind of like a cool thing to explore, I guess. So my next question for you is, who are you and what do you do?
Oh boy, who am I and what do I do? You know, I always hate that when people are like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a witch. I'm like, I read tarot and astrology for a living, and I'm an artist. I made a tarot deck and I sell it online, and I meet people and I teach intention setting rituals, and I live a magical life.
See, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Real quick, what is the name of your tarot deck and where can people get it at while we're on the topic of it?
Oh, okay. It's called the Moon Void Tarot, and you can get it on my website at moonvoidtarot.com, or I sell it also on Etsy. So you can go on etsy.com and type in Moon Void Tarot. You can buy me there, and that goes directly to me. Or I have, if you're in the New York area, I sell it a lot of little boutiques and little witch shops like Catlin Books and Jill Lindsay. But yeah, you can mostly find me on my website.
Very cool. I'll be sure to put a link in the show notes so people can check that out very easily. And I've seen your artwork for some of the cards on Instagram that I want to say. I like your style because it's very unique, and I just like the presentation of it overall. As somebody that reads tarot, I don't know, maybe some people have a different approach than I do, but the artwork is probably the most important thing for me. I don't necessarily remember book descriptions. I kind of read what the card says based upon the artwork of the card and my own interpretation of it with everything. So art is like the critical element of tarot, and I think that you did a very good job from what I saw. That I have to really sit down and digest all of the cards to make an educated decision, but I'm willing to risk my credibility as an individual, which isn't really that, there's not really that much credibility in me anyhow. But I'm willing to risk it and say that it's all very awesome. Regardless, I like the style. So Very, very good work. So you'd said that you are an astrologer and a tarot reader. So before I get to that question, actually, another one comes up, and that is, I'm going to riff off of Gordon White's from Rune Soup's "Are You a Weird Kid" thing. Were you a weird kid?
Oh, absolutely.
What's one specific instance that sticks out that like highlights your weirdness?
I think I used to go to like sleepovers, and all the girls would have these big sleepover parties, and my favorite thing to do was I would have all the girls sit in a circle like before we went to sleep, and I'd have somebody like lay down with their head in my lap, and I would rub their temples and put them into a trance, and everybody wanted to have me put them in a trance, and I would like do these guided meditations, and I'd be like, you're walking down a hall, tell me what you see, is it dark, is it light, and I would like prompt them, and they would come, and I would be like, okay, you're coming out of it, and people would be like, oh my God, this was the craziest thing. And I was doing that when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. Like, I guess that is probably weird to like regular people, but to me, I'm like, that's like the whole beginning of your journey doing what you're now like doing now, I would assume.
It just felt like so much fun, and I couldn't wait to go to these parties so I could do that. It's very strange.
No, that's awesome though.
Thanks.
I know that like a lot of people I've talked to had maybe similar paths to me where around teenage years or a little bit preteen, they kind of step back from a lot of their kind of weirdness or their gifts in ways. Did you have that experience, or did you stick with it the whole time?
No, I started, I want to say like I bought my first tarot deck when I was 14, and I got heavy into Wicca and all of that stuff. And my parents were terrified, and they thought that I was going to like dye my hair crazy colors and get a bunch of tattoos and become a drug addict, essentially. So they put me in Catholic school and took all my stuff away and made me throw all my clothes, and like heavily policed my life, basically.
It's interesting that you said and become a drug addict, because I became a drug addict because I didn't pursue a lot of that stuff. Like, it's something I'm out on the other side of now, but like a lot of people I've talked to that kind of had to suppress their gifts or really shut that element of their life down, it actually fucks them up kind of bad, like because they can't explore it. And it's interesting, your parents might have edged you that way, but it seems like you were tenacious enough to maybe do it on the cuff and like still get away with it.
You know what? It's like the joke's on them. I dabbled in drugs when I was younger, and it always made me really sick. Like my body physically rejects the experience, and it sucks.
It's probably good for you now, though. I
tried really hard to like be the bad kid that they thought I was. I tried to live up to that expectation, and it just didn't really work out for me.
One of the things that I've found in my own personal experience, though, is I kind of use substances to fill the hole in my life that I was not getting because I wasn't pursuing my spiritual path. And now that I've stopped using substances, that hole has been filled actually with a lot of the stuff that maybe I was interested in when I was younger but didn't fully explore. So I kind of feel like, and this is just me, I know a lot of people assume that doing drugs makes them spiritual or gives them these certain different perspectives. But I feel like you either can kind of do the drugs and get half of the benefit, or you can not do the drugs and really get this deep understanding and awareness of these gifts. So I feel like you were on the right side of that decision for you, and maybe for most people in my perspective. So it's probably a good thing that you got sick off of drugs. Just saying. So when you started messing around with tarot, what was your first tarot deck?
It was a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I think I bought it at Barnes & Noble. I think I took it off there after school and bought like the tarot. I still have it, and like the guidebook, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I loved the artwork and I thought it was so cool. And I forgot to mention this, I went to Catholic school for most of my life. And so I had like, there were all these like mystical elements like mixed with Catholicism in them, and like Judaism, because we had to study like a bunch of different religions as part of the curriculum. So studying religion always fascinated me, but I didn't understand it to the magnitude that I did now. I think I was just playing around with it, and I was more reading the book and looking at the pictures without really understanding the concept of how they fit together.
I think that one of the things with tarot too, though, is the more that you kind of play with it and work with it and really utilize it in your life, the deeper the understanding goes. And I kind of think that continues throughout one's whole experience with it. Like, I pretty much accepted that I'm going to be learning more about tarot until I die, even with the same decks. And that's actually really fascinating. There was a time when that would scare me. I guess, do you find that the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is a good deck for people to kind of learn the basics because so many other decks are built off of those concepts?
I would definitely say so. It feels like the Grey's Anatomy of like, it's like what you learn off of.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's important to know a little bit of historical background. I feel like all of because if you follow astrology, because of where our outer planets are and the raised vibration on Earth has changed the meanings of the cards. That's why I think a lot of people have gone on to make their own cards. I know for me, like a lot of the cards have a completely different meaning to me, and I don't personally interpret them the way that I learned them, because I just feel like it's a different energy and it's a different time. I feel like as we evolve as a species, like tarot evolves too, just like anything.
I got to stop you right there. Like, my mind is fucking blown right now about this concept of tarot evolving and like the whole concepts of the cards changing, because it makes perfect sense to me that like that would happen, and kind of thinking about how the astrological significance of everything kind of like updating, I guess, or whatever. But I've literally never thought of that. So like, if I was a cartoon character, my jaw would be dropping right now because I'm so fucking floored by that. Wow. I'm trying to think of how to like. So give me an example of cards that you really feel have changed just from your own personal understanding.
Okay. I'm gonna say the sevens. If you think of the sevens, especially the Seven of Cups. The Seven of Cups in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck is the figure who's looking up into the sky at the cups that are filled. It's like an illusion and like delusional thinking about, and like materialism.
Mm-hmm.
But how I see it now, and having shifted, if you think of the sevens in numerology, it's sevens are an initiation. It's the beginning of action. So the initiation of an action, at least in my deck, is when you're thinking of something, you're building a vision. So it's our thoughts create our reality. Our inner experience creates our outer reality. We all know this now. So when you get that card, it's like, watch your thoughts. What are you thinking about? Because what you're thinking is going to manifest. So make sure that you're directing your thoughts for better or for worse. It's not being illusioned or disillusioned by something. It's being in charge of your subconscious mind.
I really like that. Yeah, the way that I interpret it is choices, kind of. So I guess it's kind of same thing as of being in charge of your thoughts. You have a choice of kind of how you want to approach it.
Yeah, because it's like, if it's cups, it's emotions. And if you're manifesting something, you have to get behind the feeling of it. Once you think of it, then you have to embody the feeling to make it happen. So it's like, you think of the thought and then you can get into the feeling of it. So if you want something to happen, you can't be thinking of the lack of it and feeling it, the lack of its presence. You need to like embody it fully as if you already have it, and then the universe is going to deliver it to you.
I really struggle with law of attraction.
I heard that on one of your podcasts. I was like, oh, I can't wait to like fight you on this.
Yeah, I really, I like the concept of it in the Kabbalion, like the Hermetic principle of where that's kind of based off of. I forget what it is off the top of my head. Like that makes a lot more sense. But I guess my question to you is this: do you find that being inauthentic and kind of lying to yourself about the law of attraction will negatively impact it anyhow? Like, because this is one of the things that always catches me up on it. Like if I say that, let's just say that I say like I'm really happy, but I'm actually miserable and I'm kind of lying to myself. Doesn't that kind of negatively impact the law of attraction if I'm lying?
I feel like that's sending a mixed message to the universe. If you're also, why would you it's if you're saying that you're happy, but deep down you're not, it's like the universe knows. So it's like, okay, if you're going to come from an unhappy place, you're only going to get an unhappy, because it's just matching your energy.
Okay, that's a fair response. I guess maybe the thing for me is in some of the circles where I've heard about law of attraction, they almost make it seem like you can game the universe. And in my experience, like I have to actually believe all of this stuff, and there's no way that like if I believe it, I can't fight any of it. So it could just be my own misunderstanding of the way other people are presenting it, I guess. Does that make sense?
Totally. I try to, like, if I'm listening to something and it feels like it's coming across as it's gaming like the universe for material gains, then I kind of like that just doesn't resonate for me.
I guess that's the other thing too. Maybe elements of law of attraction don't work for me because it feels inauthentic, and I've personally kind of voided the capacity of using it that way.
I just thought it was interesting when you reached out to me to be on your podcast. Before I said yes or no, I was like, let me go listen to this and see if this is, if it resonates. And I feel like the first episode I listened to, you said something about like not being into law of attraction, but then afterwards you mentioned something about like you wanted to widen your circle, or you wanted to like attract more people into your life that are interested in the things that you're interested in to like grow. And I was like, well, that's law of attraction right there, because you like reached out to me and you've like got all these people. I'm like, isn't that kind of what you're doing?
Let me live in my delusion. Okay, no, I'm joking.
I feel like if the universe is always waiting for you to make the first move. That's the thing with the law of attraction. We can't sit there and say like, I really want, I want deeper connections in my life and not make a move. And to me, you said the thing you wanted, you made a move. And so now the universe is going to kind of like make 10 steps for you and bring people into your realm that are really going to like resonate with you and take you on, down a new rabbit hole of experience that maybe you wouldn't have gone to had you not opened yourself up to it.
All right, I'll concede you win that round. You win that round. Yeah, I guess it's just maybe my own delusion or disillusion of looking at law of attraction. And I like how you kind of brought up doing the footwork, because it always goes back to the sandwich analogy for me. If I want a sandwich, I can like law of attract, like what the way I viewed it as sandwich in my mind of I really want a sandwich and wait for the universe to deliver. But you talk about having to take action, which I feel some people miss. And maybe that's what I get butthurt about. But I have to get up off my ass and make a sandwich or order the sandwich, and then the sandwich manifests. There's not a passive element in it, I guess. Anyhow, I could go on about this all day. You definitely proved to me maybe there's more to law of attraction than I think, and I'll grumblingly concede. So what are your favorite tarot cards, personally?
My personal favorite is death, obviously. I love the fact that death leads to a rebirth. I love the renewal that comes with it. What else do I love? I should have I love them all. Um,
What's your third favorite tarot card?
um, I I guess I really like I would say like the Fool next. Like I love new beginnings. Like I love endings and beginnings. And I love the process that it takes you into letting go and creating space
Hmm.
and taking chances and just going for it anyway. Because basically anything that's scary is the stuff I want to be near.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I definitely relate to that. Um, I interviewed somebody else who made a tarot deck earlier on in this year, and they said that it was the year of the hangman because the numerologically, if you add it up without reducing it, it would be 12. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. So if you so it's 12 or 3. So where it's an interesting dichotomy to be in a hanged man year and an empress year.
Hmm.
Because hangman energy is about waiting and about being like in between. Um in my tarot deck, the hangman, like she's upside down and her hands are like in prayer pose, like she's meditating because she can't do anything. She's just waiting. So what do you do when you're waiting? You know, you can let your mind spin out of control. You can get stressed out. You can the thing that most people do is they push because they're and that kind of alters the course of whatever the original thing you wanted. So
Hmm.
it's like, what do you do in that time when you're supposed to be patient and allowing things, which is like the Empress, it's allowing and not pushing. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
receiving, but it's allowing yourself to receive and being really like quiet and patient. I feel like it's another like very yin year. It's not like next year is going to be very intense when we're in a 4 and we're like in the Emperor year, but
I don't need more intensity. I need more chill. I need more mellow, so I'm not harsh in my mellow.
I
um,
would, I would take this time and embrace it and get really quiet and see what the universe has to say to you.
people keep telling me I need to listen more. So I guess maybe I'll listen to that. Possibly, we'll see what happens. um, so as far as death, outside of your deck, who has your favorite representation of death? Like what deck?
Ooh, that's a really good shoot. I should have I should know this. I can see it in my head. It's like the death is like and I can't think of the name of it. Shit. But the death is like has angel wings and the like scythe and it's just really beautifully painted.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe you can send me a picture afterwards because I'm
Yeah,
curious. I want to see it now.
really like
I really like the death in oh, what is it? I have it right here. Wildwood Tarot. I really like where it's like this crow on this skull, and then I just got the Wild Unknown.
oh, their death card is great.
Yeah, I like their death, and I also right now I have back to the Hangman. I have their Hangman card on as like the wallpaper on my phone to kind of meditate on it. Dude, that death is or that Hangman is phenomenal. Like the little bat. Um, Out of the cards you've made, these are like all tarot centric questions because I'm just curious. Out of the cards you made, what are your top 3 favorite cards?
The Hermit.
Okay.
The Hermit is my favorite card in my deck.
Hermit's one of my favorite cards altogether. I'm gonna have to look it up and see it. What is? Explain it if you could. What does it look like?
So, um, it's a cabin in the woods, and it's just like hanging out under a moon. And it's actually repeated in my moon card. The cabin's like is a lot smaller, like further away, and the moon's really big. So in those two cards, like the cabin is repeated. I don't know if you want like the backstory of my tarot deck or not, but
Yeah, please. Let me see how much time it is. We might do it after the break. Yeah, you know what? Let's take a quick break if you want. I'm going to grab some water, and then we can come back and we could kind of dive into this, because I'm really curious, but I don't want to rush you, because I want to bask in all of its glory. All right, we will be back after this with Stefanie Caponi. Are you facing questions with no answers, or seeking an escape from persistent problems? Then enlist the Oracle at Mushin. The Oracle at Mushin provides high-quality tarot and life coaching services at affordable prices. Quickly and easily book online with the link in our description. Our listeners get a 10% discount off the Oracle at Mushin's already low prices. Use code OFF10. That's OFF10. Seek the solution today. All right, we are back with Stefanie Caponi for part 2 of her interview. Stefanie, before the break, you had kind of asked if I wanted to hear what inspired your tarot deck. Let's hear the backstory if you're willing. I'm all ears.
Absolutely. Well, you had asked me which card was my favorite, and I don't know if it makes sense why I love it so much if you didn't know. Like, it's very personal. I told you I've been reading tarot since I was 14, but in 2016, I quit my life. I quit my job. I left a marriage. I left my house. I had a business. I was just I sold everything I owned and just piled into what I could into my car and hit the road for New York. And I ended up renting a little cabin in the woods because I was just I just need some quiet. I've never been alone. I just need to think. I need to figure out what I want to do with my life. And I stayed in this little cabin, and that's the cabin on the Hermit card.
Very cool.
Thanks. I took a year off from life and decided to write a memoir about my experiences and discovering that you're, always knowing you're a weird kid and living a magical life and what that looks like and how you deny yourself outlet and how that manifests. For you mentioned, you turn to substances. Substances wasn't the thing. It was more food and shopping and just living a completely inauthentic life for other people. So I wrote this whole book, and I was just do I want to publish this, or is it more just cathartic? And I was it kind of reminds me of the Fool's Journey. You're just pack it up and go. So I started doodling the tarot cards, and then all of a sudden it became a deck.
Oh, wow.
So it's basically, it's my story, which is always really interesting that it became something that I put out into the world and other people have it and they see themselves in it, because my story is everybody's story.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. I'm so grateful that you explained that. I'm actually writing my second book right now, and it's my memoirs. And I was really thinking about breaking down different parts of my life, or assigning tarot cards for parts of my life. So it's cool to hear kind of the synchronicity in amongst that. Yeah. One other thing, you talk about the Fool, my first book, it's over on the bookshelf. I'll show you the cover after the fact, but the Hermit and the Fool are on it. So, because I find those to be relative to kind of anybody who really lives life and makes a lot of changes, because they're both really powerful cards overall. Let me ask you this. Are you going to make more tarot decks going forward?
I don't know if it's going to be a tarot deck. I would like to do some type of oracle deck. Maybe, I don't know if I'm playing with ideas. Are you into Lenormand tarot at all?
I've heard of it. I haven't really explored it yet. I don't have much time for anything beyond what I'm familiar with at this point, unfortunately. Explain it though, in case listeners maybe aren't familiar with it?
So the cards are, they're symbols. So there's like the key and the house. And the way you read them is you read with the whole deck. You start with taking 2 cards in the middle, and then you put them all, and it's all face down, all over, around, and then you put all the cards out, and then you flip them over and you read them for how far they are away from each other. And the cards make combinations of things. It's really fascinating. It's like just a completely different way of doing it. So I thought maybe doing something with that, or because I'm so passionate about astrology and the different symbols of tarot in astrology, that I might make like some type of astrology deck.
That would be really neat. I've heard that, how do you say it, Lenormand? Is that how you pronounce it? I've heard that people use that a lot of times for finding lost objects and stuff like that. Have you heard that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look into it more now, because I like I said, I'm familiar with the name of it, maybe not so much the concept of it, but now I'm more intrigued, and I don't really need anything else in my life right now, but I'm really bad at impulsive decision making. So it might be something that I do or investigate. So let me ask you a little bit about astrology now. How did you kind of get involved in all of that? Like in your life, in your timeline, when did that kind of phase into importance?
I always was into it when I was little, but I didn't really know anything further than like just I loved reading my horoscope every day, and everybody I knew, if I knew their sign, I wanted to read theirs too, because it kind of felt like I could communicate with them better if I knew what their sign was, because I was like, we're all so different. And when you think of the world, you think of the way you see the world. You don't think about anybody else.
You can say that again. No.
True.
No, I agree completely.
So when I learned that you have a sun sign and a moon sign and a rising sign, I was like, because I'm a Leo and I'm like the least Leo person ever. I mean, I'm very friendly and outgoing, but only once I'm really comfortable. I'm actually really moody and dark and very, very emotional and very secretive and not very trusting of people, not forthcoming with like my own stuff. And then I learned that I was a Scorpio moon. And I was like, oh, and I started reading about what that meant. And I was like, oh, shit.
It's interesting. This is another one of those law of attraction moments that you kind of brought up earlier. Prior to the new year, I had talked about wanting to learn more about astrology, but I had also recognized that like I don't have a lot of time to do so. The past 3 interviews that I've had, three or within past 3 out of 4, one person talked about their North Node. The next person that came on was an astrologist, and I talked to her largely about North Node and kind of my own chart. And then you're bringing up a lot of this stuff.
What's your North Node?
My North Node, I forget what she said it was. Dude, my memory's freaking shot. It was very fitting for me, is all I can remember. And it's interesting, you kind of talked about having Scorpio. I have a lot of Scorpio energy. So I'm Pisces, what I want to say, Libra as my rising, but then I have like a bunch of Scorpio energy. So I'm like this giant clusterfuck of signs.
We all are. It's like your sun, the sun and the moon are the luminaries. So they're the brightest points in your chart, which is why you always read for them. When you read like a daily horoscope, though, you read for your rising sign, because that is going to line up with the planets as they currently are right now. So then you'll get a reading that'll more resonate with you.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, ladies first.
No, I don't even know where I was going with that. It was a whole tangent about rising signs. Please stop me from myself.
I'm actually curious what you're going to say, because I was going to say, so rising sign is your straight up sign, right? That's the one associated with your birthday?
Well, the day is the sun sign, and it depends on the hour of the day. is the rising. So if you know what time you were born exactly, you'll know what your rising is. If you're off by a couple of hours, it changes because it's the sign that's rising it's like coming up on the horizon line at the moment that you're born, that constellation.
Okay. Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
That rules like the first house. I'm sorry. I'm like, my favorite thing to talk about.
No, you're totally fine. Can you explain the houses like more? The other person explained it, but we were near the kind of end of the interview. I'm just curious.
So the first house is where the rising is, because like I said, it's like what's coming up as you're born. So your first house is like the house of the self. So it's your physical appearance. It's how you act around people that you don't know very well. It's like a very surface level thing. Like I'm a Libra rising too. So I meet people and I'm like very friendly, very warm, but like, can do like some chit chat, even though that's not who I am. I'm like, I want to get like very deep into conversations with people. So like the Libra rising is just like, almost it deflects attention until I feel comfortable to let somebody in. Mm. So the second house goes into your values and your material possessions. And then the third house is like communications, how you interact with siblings. It's like school when you were little. So like elementary, middle school, high school, short distance trips. And the fourth house is like the house of your home. It's like the foundation. It's the very bottom of the chart. So it's like the base and the roots. So like, as I'm going through this, if you think about it, when you have somebody read your chart, they're looking at what signs are showing up in those houses and what that means for you. So like for me, Aquarius is in my fourth house, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So it's like very volatile and a very unstable planet. So the first time I had somebody read my chart, she was like, oh, you probably moved around a lot when you were a kid and had no stability. And I was like, oh shit, that is whereas like somebody that has, like Taurus on their fourth house probably never left home, probably got along great with their families and found so much comfort in their home that never left their hometown, kind of thing. So the fifth house is like the house of like romance and creativity. It's dating and children. So like if you think about like when you give birth to something, it's like you can give birth to a creative project or to a child. That is all like fifth house stuff. Sixth house is like your daily routines and your health and well-being. And the seventh house is partnerships. And that could be like in business, that is spouses, marriage, enemies, open enemies. Because a lot of times we partner with people that we're like, once the veil kind of thins, you're just like, oh my God, how did I ever want to be anywhere near you? You're horrible. But that's seventh house connection. Eighth house is sex and death and rebirth, the occult, other people's money, inheritances, taxes. The ninth house is long distance travel, higher education, spirituality, philosophy, publishing. The 10th house is career and like what you do and how you're seen in the world. And the 11th house is how you show up in group dynamics and being of service to the collective. And the 12th house is the house of the unknown and self-undoing. So if you think about it, it really goes in a circle of like being a little kid and then like experiencing your family and going to school and experiencing other children and then dating and then getting a job and going to work and then getting a partner and then like what comes after the partnership and then like going away like to school and like higher learning and like pushing yourself further into the world and into your career. And then when you learn that you're here to give more to the world other than just a paycheck, and then you go into like the deep philosophical realms of the 12th house.
That's interesting. Like like especially the 12th house, kind of thinking about the deep philosophical aspect of everything. Like I'm in a 12-step program, and the 12th step is kind of about giving back, being of service, and carrying what you've learned with other people. So even that step kind of aligns with that house. It's interesting how many of these esoteric teachings or kind of stuff like that, how much they're echoed in a lot of popular culture, like under the surface, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's the 12 houses of astrology and the 12 steps of like AA and NA is very similar.
Yeah,
that's the house that's ruled by Pisces. Each zodiac sign rules a house. So if you're starting at 1, you're starting with Aries, and you go all the way around until you hit Pisces. And Pisces has no boundaries. Pisces is the only water sign that doesn't have a shell to protect itself.
Oh man, that explains a lot about my life experience.
Yeah, like Pisces have to be really careful with substances.
That's something that's come up in my chart a lot, and from what other people have expressed too, some of the other signs or whatever that interact on my chart are like, you're probably going to be a drug addict. So it's like interesting to see how much of my life was kind of foretold. And the nice thing about that though is looking at some of the stuff that's coming up in the future in my life, based upon my signs, there's actually a lot of hope for good things to come from it too.
Oh, absolutely.
So
that's the great thing. It's like a lot of times, I don't know if the astrologer you spoke to talked about like your Chiron placement. But
she did. I don't remember. I know she did. I just don't remember what she said. That episode will be up actually a week before this one comes out. So
awesome. I can't wait to listen to it. It's a lot about the wound that you bring into this world from past lives. So I'm sure the things that you struggle with in this life are an echo of how you handled it and dealt with it in past lives.
Yeah, women, drugs, and friendships are definitely what I struggle with.
Right. So, but you're doing all of this really good work to kind of heal yourself. And then once you kind of heal yourself, then you're able to give back and help others.
Yeah, it definitely is something that I'm focusing on now, is kind of giving back and helping other people so other people can kind of learn something from my suffering so it wasn't in vain. My next question to you is going to be, so do you do a lot of shows in your locality, or like what are some of the events that you do in your area?
I do like, so I do different events at like spaces. Like one of the places I work, they do like private parties for like holistic day spas. And so they will come in, and people that are in the industry that, own day spas or are massage therapists or Reiki healers or acupuncturists will come and get services from us. I do like private tarot parties. I do intention setting workshops. I do a lot of like private parties, and it's funny because people think it's going to be like all fun and games and everybody ends up crying. Like, oh wow, I thought that was going to be like really lighthearted. I'm like, no, tarot isn't really lighthearted. It's like, do you want to take a deep look at yourself?
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's interesting what people think tarot is versus what it actually is, because I have a lot of people come to me for like divination questions, and my understanding of it is these are more of a mirror of your subconscious and kind of projections of the work that you aren't doing, and they'll give you some maybe little crackers or like a carrot on a stick if you're doing some things good, but it's usually a lot of unpleasant shit that people don't want to look at or take accountability for. I don't think a lot of people approach it that way, or at least a lot of people I've interacted with the exception of readers that have really studied stuff and don't memorize stuff out of the book as their answers. Is that your experience as well, that it's more about uncomfortable things? I mean, I guess you already answered that more so, but.
Yeah, like a lot of people will, when I read, I usually don't ask them to give me any context. I'll just, I'll ask them to think in their mind about the way that they're wanting this to like go, whether they're thinking about work or relationships or family or money or whatever. And then I just see what comes up, and then I usually give like what I feel. It's not always like based on like the traditional meaning of the card. I like to see them next to one another because they're having a conversation. A lot of times, especially with like a reversed card, sometimes I look at it as like, maybe let's say you have a knight, so you have like a knight of pentacles and it's like upside down, because if it was right side up, it would be facing away from something. Or like when I see the hermit upside down, sometimes he's shining his lantern at something and his back is to something else. Like I look at the body language of the cards.
And I really like that.
That gives me a lot of, because my deck is a black and white deck. So when I read with colorful decks, I look at a color story, but I look a lot at body language of the cards. So I don't necessarily, when I see a reversal, think it means the opposite or a block to it. It's like, okay, who are you pointing at? Where do you need to focus before you can go the other way? Or do you even need to go the other way? There's so many things.
Yeah, I really like it, how dynamic it can be, because it is really dependent upon what the placement is. And I really like how you touched on reversals, maybe not necessarily being a direct opposite, because for me, sometimes it can intensify those things. Sometimes it can kind of reduce the negative aspects of certain things. It really is very fluid. And I don't really have any set rule. It really is kind of the total picture of everything. It's like a comic strip. Yeah, that's super cool. So what insight would you give to people that are maybe new to tarot or new to astrology? Actually, how about both? What insight would you offer to people to just starting their journey?
That's a great question. You have great questions. Thank you so much. I would say people are, when they're new to tarot, they're always worried they're doing it wrong. And isn't that just an echo of how we feel when we are finding our way back to ourselves and to our intuition? We are always second guessing it. They're constantly looking in the book. What does it mean? It's like the only way to really do it is to do it every single day. Read for yourself every morning, and don't be afraid to read for other people, even if what you're saying doesn't mean anything that the card actually is supposed to mean, because that's what your intuition said. Whatever it sparks needs to be heard and said, and you need to practice engaging with that side of you. I didn't become a tarot reader. I actually fought against it. I did this big, like 6-month group class where they were like, okay, so everybody will be like basically certified to be tarot readers when we're done with this. And I was like, I don't want to be a tarot reader. I just wanted to like learn how to trust myself and be seen by other people and comfortable speaking in groups, because I was very shy. So I feel like it's a definite way to build your confidence, to build your self-esteem, and the way you engage with your intuition. So just like continually practice with it. And the same thing with astrology. It's like read your chart over and over and over again. And just start small. Start with like learning what the planets are, learn the houses, like just, even if you're just Googling like what a conjunction means or what an opposition is, or what does it mean to have Saturn in your 12th house or whatever, and just nerd out. That's what I do. People are like, wow, where'd you learn that? I'm like, I had a lot of spare time. I was alone and I was confused and I was in hermit mode and I just wanted to study everything.
I really like that answer. I'm trying to think of one more good question before I turn you loose, because I don't want to hold you hostage all day. I guess this will be a fun question. If you had to write a book based upon your life experience, what would the title of it be?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, like I said, I did write a book, and my book was called Void of Course, which is how I came up with the Moon Void Tarot. So the Void of Course moon, the moon changes signs every couple days. I think today it's in Taurus. So when the moon changes signs, it makes aspects to other planets, and then it shifts into the next sign. And sometimes it goes seamlessly, and sometimes it goes void, where it is not in any sign. It's not making any aspects, and it's just hanging out. And if you practice magic, you know that when the moon is void, it's like it's barren. There's no energy there. It's not touching anything. There's no help. It's a time to like get really quiet and to not make any moves. And that's how I felt with my book. I was like in the void. Of course, I was like, I have nothing. I own nothing. I have nothing. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just gonna hang out here and see what comes in.
It's interesting how the universe works at times. First off, I love the title. Secondly, one of my books was poetry from a decade of my life. And 2 or 3 days ago, one of the poems from that book was queued to come up, and it actually mentions the void. So it's interesting that you kind of tie that in. And it says, words, words, words. That is all I write, trying to elaborate on the void. And it's a picture of a black hole.
Oh my gosh.
So it's interesting that you bring that up. And I also, from having had times in my life of complete nothingness and this abandoned, barren life, there's so much growth that occurs in that, and so much necessary stillness and relaxation that comes from it. But most people don't ever give themselves the opportunity to experience that. Do you ever consider still publishing your book?
Absolutely. I feel like it needs a little work. I haven't looked at it in like a year and a half. I feel like what I did was I made the tarot deck out of it, and a lot of the things that the artwork that I make on my page on Instagram, a lot of the stuff I write about is like abstract versions of things that I'm going through or have gone through. So I feel like I just kind of like work it in different angles. Like I feel like the book came out, it just was it in like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they like go through Wonka vision and like, I'm up in the sky in a million pieces. It's like Wonka vision. Like that's how my book exists, just in a million little pieces, and it'll come out in a different form.
I like that. No, I definitely understand. Yeah, I hope that maybe you decide to release it in its full form or go back through and kind of rework with what you already did. One of the things that I've learned, I read Stephen King's On Writing in preparation to writing the book that I'm writing now. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but one of the things he kind of mentions is writing it, setting it aside for a while, then picking it back up, looking at it with a fresh set of eyes and reworking it. So maybe that's something to consider, and even using your experience from the Moon Void Tarot to kind of recalibrate some of the elements or cut out stuff that maybe you don't want to open up to the public. I don't know, just a suggestion. I'd hate to see you work so hard on that. I know that you got fruit from it by doing everything that you've done, but I feel like there's something in there that can help other people that maybe you shouldn't let it out there for the world. Real quick, could you mention your links again so we can throw that out there for everybody?
Absolutely. You can find me on moonvoidtarot.com. You can find me on Instagram at Stefanie Caponi. And that is for my illustration and a little bit of tarot. And then the guidebook for Moon Void Tarot is at Moon Void Tarot. The guidebook at the moment is digital, so it's a private account. So you can request to join. Of course, I accept everybody that asks to follow, but just because it's each card is listed with its description while I'm still in the process of finishing that book. So I have like a lot of books that are coming out. And then on Etsy, you can find me Moon Void Tarot on Etsy.
Very cool. Stefanie, thank you so much for sharing that. And thanks for coming on. Like I said earlier, all those links will be in the show notes. And I like to ask the guests to close the show in their own words. Your eyes just got super big. You don't have to if you don't want to, but the floor is yours if you'd like to.
Oh no, so this is where I get like very nervous closing the show. I don't even know what that means. No, thank you so much, Ross, for having me on and for making the podcast. I think it's really important work, and I'm very happy to be on it. So thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the show, Phoenix family. Just a reminder, we are fan funded and you can contribute with the link in the show notes. Other ways to support the show include leaving excellent reviews wherever possible, subscribing to our YouTube channel, engaging with our content on social media, sending me an email, or reaching out via voice message through the Anchor app. Your support is greatly appreciated. Much love and synchronicity. Peace.